The first time Isla noticed something was wrong. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet. So quiet it almost felt like nothing at all. Just a small detail that didn't sit right. The toothbrush in the bathroom. There were two. There shouldn't have been. Isla stood there longer than necessary, her hand resting lightly against the sink, her eyes fixed on the second toothbrush sitting neatly beside hers as if it had always belonged there. Same position, same angle, same familiarity. But she lived alone. She had lived alone for months. Her breath slowed slightly as confusion settled in. Not panic, just that strange, creeping feeling that something had shifted without her noticing. Because Isla didn't remember putting it there. But it didn't feel out of place either. She reached out slowly and touched it. Dry, unused, but not old, not forgotten, present. Her fingers trembled slightly before she pulled her hand back, shaking her head under her breath, as if that alone could reset whatever was happening. "It's nothing," she whispered. But her voice didn't sound convinced. She turned away quickly, grabbing her towel and leaving the bathroom. But the feeling followed her, not behind her, not around her, inside her, like a thought she couldn't quite access. The apartment was silent, too silent, not empty, just still. And that stillness felt less like peace and more like something waiting to be noticed. Isla walked into the living room slowly, her movements cautious, without fully understanding why. Everything looked normal. The couch, the table, the faint light slipping through the curtains. Nothing out of place, nothing wrong. Except the second mug, on the table, half filled. Her steps slowed, her chest tightened slightly, because she hadn't made 2 cups of coffee. She hadn't even made one. And yet, the mug looked freshly used, like someone had just been there. Her eyes scanned the room quickly now, sharper, more alert. "Hello?" she called out, her voice controlled but thinner than before. No answer, only silence. But it wasn't empty silence anymore. It felt occupied. Her gaze returned slowly to the mug. Steam wasn't rising from it, but it wasn't cold either. That impossible in-between. Her hand hovered over it, hesitant, before she touched it lightly. Warm. Isla pulled her hand back instantly. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "No, that's not." But the sentence didn't finish, because something inside her reacted before she could think. A memory. Not clear, not full, but present. A voice, a laugh, someone sitting exactly where that mug was placed. Her breath caught, her heart skipped. She stepped back slightly. "That's not real," she said quickly, more to herself than anything else. But the apartment didn't agree. The air shifted faintly, subtle, barely noticeable, but enough. Because suddenly, Isla realized she wasn't imagining something new. She was forgetting something important. Her chest tightened harder now. She turned toward the hallway slowly, her eyes narrowing slightly as something deeper began to surface. Not fear, not yet. Something else. Recognition. Her feet moved before she fully decided to walk, step by step toward the bedroom. The door was slightly open. She knew she had closed it earlier. She was sure of it, and that small detail felt more terrifying than anything else so far. Her hand reached the door slowly, pushed it open. The room was dim, still, normal. At first, the bed was made, the window slightly open, curtains barely moving, nothing wrong, nothing out of place. Until she saw it, the dent, on the other side of the bed, fresh, as if someone had just gotten up moments ago. Isla froze completely. Her breathing stopped. Her eyes locked onto it, because that side of the bed hadn't been used in months. Not since. Her thoughts cut off instantly, sharp, blocked. Because the moment she tried to remember, something inside her refused to let her finish it. Her hand slowly lifted to her chest as her breathing became uneven. "No," she whispered. But the denial felt weaker now, less certain, more like something she had repeated too many times. The air in the room shifted again, closer, heavier, and then a sound, soft, barely there, behind her, a breath, not hers. Isla's entire body went cold. She didn't turn immediately. She couldn't, because something inside her already knew. Turning around would confirm something she wasn't ready to accept. And for the first time, she realized the fear wasn't that someone was in the apartment. It was that she might already know who it was. Her fingers trembled slightly. Her throat tightened. And slowly, she turned. Isla turned slowly, her body resisting the movement, even as her mind forced it forward. Her breath caught somewhere between fear and something deeper she couldn't name. The room behind her looked empty at first, still, quiet, untouched. But the feeling didn't match what she was seeing. It lingered, close, too close. Her eyes scanned the space carefully, searching for anything out of place, anything that could explain the breath she had heard. But there was nothing. Just the same dim light, the same quiet room, the same still air. And yet, the presence didn't leave. It only felt like it stepped back just enough to stay hidden. Isla swallowed slowly, her throat dry as her heart continued beating harder than it should. "Hello?" she called again, softer this time, as if speaking too loudly might make something real. No answer. But the silence wasn't empty. It felt aware. Her gaze shifted back toward the bed, toward the dent in the mattress that hadn't been there before. Her mind pushed against it, trying to find a logical explanation, something simple, something safe. "It's just the mattress," she whispered. "It reshaped, that's all." But even as she said it, she didn't believe it, because the dent was too precise, too recent, too human. And something inside her knew exactly who it belonged to, even if she refused to say his name. Her chest tightened at that thought, and she turned away quickly, stepping out of the bedroom as if distance alone could reset whatever was happening. Her movements were faster now, less controlled, her mind trying to regain something solid. She needed something real, something normal. She grabbed her phone from the table, her fingers moving quickly as she unlocked it, searching for distraction, for proof of reality. But the moment the screen lit up, she froze. A message, unread, from a contact she hadn't seen in months. Her heart dropped. The name at the top of the screen didn't feel possible, because it was the one name she had trained herself not to look for anymore. Her hand trembled as she stared at it. Ethan. Her breath became uneven. "No," she whispered. "That's not." But the message was there, clear, simple, recent. Her thumb hovered over the screen, hesitation locking her in place. She hadn't seen his name light up her phone since that night, since the moment everything had ended, since the moment he... Her mind stopped again, blocked, sharp, like something inside her was still protecting her from finishing that memory. Her fingers tightened around the phone. "This isn't real," she said, but her voice lacked conviction now. The phone buzzed again. Another message. This time, her heart skipped harder. She didn't need to open it to feel it, to know it, because the presence in the room shifted at the exact same moment the message arrived. Slowly, she opened it. Her breath caught. "You're finally noticing." The words hit her chest like something heavy and familiar at the same time. Not threatening, not urgent, just certain. Isla stepped back slightly, her eyes darting around the apartment again. No, this is a joke. Someone is doing this. But even as she said it, she knew no one else had access to that number. No one else would write like that. No one else. Her phone buzzed again. A third message. Her hands trembled harder now as she forced herself to read it. "I've been here the whole time." The air in the room shifted again. Closer. Warmer. Her breathing became uneven as she slowly turned in place, her eyes scanning the empty space again. But this time, it didn't feel empty at all. It felt occupied, present, watching. "Ethan," she whispered, the name slipping out before she could stop it. And the moment she said it, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then steadied. And that's when she realized something terrifying. The apartment didn't react until she acknowledged him. Her chest tightened sharply. Her mind raced. "This isn't possible. You're not here. You can't be here." But the phone buzzed again. She looked down instantly. One final message. "Turn around." Her entire body went still. Her breathing stopped. Because this time, she didn't want to. Not because she didn't believe it, but because she did. And for the first time, Isla wasn't afraid of what she might see. She was afraid of what she would feel. Her fingers tightened slightly. Her heart pounded, and slowly, she turned. Isla turned slowly, every movement deliberate, her breath barely steady as the silence around her tightened like it was closing in. Her heart pounded so loudly, she could feel it in her throat, each second stretching longer than it should, as she forced herself to face what she already knew was behind her. At first, there was nothing. Just the same dim apartment, the same still air, the same quiet, but the feeling didn't match what she was seeing. It lingered, closer now. And then Isla realized something terrifying. She wasn't looking in the right place. Her eyes shifted slightly, not to the center of the room, but just off to the side, where something didn't fully belong. A faint distortion, barely visible, like heat bending air. Her breath caught. She stared harder. And slowly, it began to take shape. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but gradually, as if it had always been there and was now allowing itself to be seen. A figure, standing just a few steps away from her, still, quiet, watching. Isla's chest tightened painfully, her lips parted, but no sound came out at first, because she recognized him before she fully saw him, not by his face, but by the way her body reacted to his presence. The figure became clearer, edges forming, details settling. And then, Ethan stood there, exactly as she remembered him. Same height, same posture, same calm, familiar stillness, not broken, not damaged, just present. Isla staggered back a step, her hand instinctively reaching for the edge of the table to steady herself. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling. "No, that's not. You're not." But her words didn't finish, because her eyes refused to look away, and neither did he. There was something deeply unsettling about how normal he looked, like nothing had ever happened to him at all. Ethan didn't move immediately. He didn't speak. He just stood there, watching her with an expression that wasn't cold, wasn't angry, just quiet, familiar, the kind of look she had seen 100 times before. And that made it worse. Isla shook her head slightly, her breathing uneven. You died, she said, the words finally escaping, fragile and incomplete. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Ethan tilted his head slightly, the same small movement she remembered so clearly. You saw it, he said softly. His voice wasn't distorted, wasn't echoing. It sounded exactly like him. Real. Close. Her breath caught sharply. She started, but the memory hit her too fast. The night, the moment, the fall. Her chest tightened painfully. I remember, she whispered, her voice breaking. And that was the first time she didn't try to stop the memory from forming. Ethan took a small step forward, not aggressive, not sudden, just enough to close the distance slightly. But you didn't stay, he said. The words landed softly, but they carried weight. Isla's eyes widened. What do you mean? Her mind raced, trying to hold on to something stable, something real. But the presence in front of her was too clear, too consistent to dismiss. Ethan's gaze didn't leave hers. You left, he said simply. Her breathing became uneven again. No, I didn't leave you. I was there. But the sentence broke apart, because something inside her knew exactly what he meant. And that realization felt heavier than seeing him standing there. Her hand trembled slightly as she pressed it against her chest. I didn't leave, she whispered again, weaker this time. Ethan's expression didn't change. You did, he said quietly. A long silence followed. The air in the apartment felt thicker now, heavier, like it was holding everything in place so nothing could escape the moment. Isla shook her head slowly, her voice barely steady. Then how are you here? Ethan looked at her for a moment longer. Then, I never left, he said. Her breath stopped completely, because somehow that answer made more sense than anything else. And that was the moment Isla realized something she wasn't ready to accept. He wasn't visiting her. He had been living there all along. Her chest tightened sharply, her thoughts scattered, and for the first time, she didn't ask how he was there. She asked something else, something deeper, something far more dangerous. Since when? She whispered. Ethan didn't hesitate. Since that night. Isla suddenly remembered something she had never questioned before. She had never once felt completely alone in that apartment. And now she knew why. Isla stood frozen, her breath shallow, her mind struggling to keep up with what Ethan had just said. Since that night. The words didn't feel like a simple answer anymore. They felt like a key unlocking something she had spent a long time keeping buried without realizing it. The apartment around them remained still, but the stillness no longer felt empty. It felt aware, like it had been listening to everything from the beginning. Ethan didn't move closer this time. He just watched her quietly, as if waiting for her mind to catch up to what her heart already suspected. And that's when Isla realized something terrifying. Her memory wasn't missing pieces. It was avoiding them. Her fingers trembled slightly as she stepped back, her back brushing against the edge of the table. That's not possible, she whispered again. But this time, her voice lacked resistance. I would remember. I would remember if you... Her words stopped abruptly, because something surfaced. Not a full memory, not clear, just a feeling, a moment, a sound, a door closing. A silence afterward that lasted too long. Her chest tightened sharply. "No," she whispered, shaking her head slightly as if that could push it away. "No, I didn't. I didn't forget that." But even as she said it, her expression shifted, because she could feel it now. Not the event itself, but the absence of it. And that absence felt more real than anything she could clearly remember. Ethan finally spoke again, softer this time. "You stopped talking about it." Isla's breath caught. Talking about what? A pause. Not from him, from her. Because she already knew what came next. But her mind refused to finish the sentence. Ethan took a slow step forward, not threatening, just closing distance. "You stopped saying my name," he said. Isla shook her head quickly. "That's not true." But her voice cracked slightly at the end, because something inside her knew it was. The apartment lights flickered faintly again, subtle, like a reaction. And Isla suddenly felt like the room was reacting more to her denial than to Ethan's presence. Her hand pressed lightly against her forehead. "I don't understand. I don't understand what you're trying to say." Ethan's gaze didn't leave her. "You were there," he said calmly. A pause. "When it happened." Her chest tightened sharply, and that's when she realized the most disturbing part. Not that she forgot him, but that something inside her chose not to remember him clearly. Her voice dropped lower. "What did I do?" she whispered, almost to herself. Ethan didn't answer immediately, and that silence was louder than anything else so far. The air in the room felt heavier now, as if the apartment itself was holding its breath. Then Ethan spoke. "You left first." Isla froze. Her eyes widened slightly. "No," she whispered immediately. "No, I wouldn't." But even as she denied it, her body reacted differently. Her breathing shifted. Her posture changed, like something inside her had just confirmed it before her mind could reject it. And that contradiction made her feel more unstable than anything supernatural about him being there. Ethan took another small step closer. His voice stayed calm. "You didn't look back." Isla shook her head rapidly now. "Stop. I wouldn't leave you." But the memory was no longer resisting as strongly. It was forming, slowly, uncomfortably, and she saw it. A version of herself turning away, not running, not panicking, just turning away. Her breath stopped. "No," she whispered again, but weaker now. Ethan's expression didn't change, but something in his presence felt closer, more certain. "You did," he repeated softly. A long silence followed, and in that silence, Isla felt something inside her shift, not breaking, not collapsing, but aligning. As if her mind was finally catching up to something her emotions had already been carrying for a long time. Her voice came out barely above a whisper. "So, you didn't come back?" A pause. "I never left your memory," Ethan replied. Isla suddenly realized she had never once dreamed of him properly since that night. Yet she had never stopped feeling like someone was in the room with her. And now, she knew who. Isla stood motionless, her breathing uneven, as Ethan's last words hung in the air longer than they should have. "I never left your memory." The sentence didn't feel like comfort. It felt like pressure. Like something was being gently pushed into place inside her mind, whether she was ready or not. The apartment felt quieter now, but not calmer, more focused, as if everything inside it had narrowed its attention onto her reaction alone. Ethan was still there, still watching, still real. And Isla suddenly realized something unsettling. His presence didn't feel new. It felt familiar, in a way she had been avoiding acknowledging. Her fingers tightened slightly at her sides as she took a small step back again, but there was nowhere further to retreat without reaching the wall. "If you never left," she whispered carefully, "then what am I living with right now?" The question lingered, heavy, unanswered. Ethan didn't respond immediately. Instead, he studied her in silence, as if waiting for her to hear her own question more clearly than he did. And that silence began to feel more like an answer than the words ever could. Isla swallowed hard. Her mind tried to push back, to rebuild logic, to anchor her in something solid. But the memory beneath it all kept shifting, refusing to stay distant anymore. The night returned again. Not fully, just fragments. Rain, movement, a sudden shift in tone, a moment where something irreversible had happened too quickly to fully process. Her chest tightened. "I remember being there," she whispered. A pause. "But not everything." Ethan's expression softened slightly. "That's the part you avoided," he said. Isla shook her head slightly, almost instinctively. "Why would I avoid it?" But even as she asked, her voice sounded less like denial and more like curiosity she didn't want to have. Because deep down, she was beginning to understand. Forgetting wasn't accidental. It was protective. Ethan took a slow step closer again, not invading, just present. "You weren't supposed to carry it alone," he said quietly. Isla's breath caught. "Carry what?" A longer pause this time, not from him, from the memory forming inside her. She felt it again, that moment just before everything changed, not the outcome, not the aftermath, but the decision point, the second where everything could have gone differently. Her throat tightened. "No," she whispered. But it wasn't rejection anymore. It was recognition. And that recognition made her realize something even more painful. She hadn't just lost someone that night. She had changed the meaning of what happened afterward. Her voice shook slightly. "Why are you showing me this now?" Ethan's gaze remained steady. "Because you stopped seeing it." Another silence. Thicker now. Isla slowly lowered her eyes, her thoughts spiraling inward instead of outward. The apartment no longer felt like a place she was questioning. It felt like a place she was remembering differently. Her voice came softer now. "You said I left." A pause. "But I don't think that's what I did." Ethan didn't interrupt. He just waited. And Isla suddenly realized something terrifying. He wasn't correcting her memory. He was waiting for her to reach it herself. Her breath became uneven again. The fragments aligned slightly more. Not fully, but enough. A moment of hesitation. A choice. A direction. She closed her eyes briefly. "I think," she whispered, "I stopped believing I stayed." The words landed softly, but they changed everything in the room. The air shifted subtly, not violently, not dramatically, but like something inside the space had just acknowledged the truth she hadn't fully spoken yet. Ethan's voice softened even more. "That's closer." Isla opened her eyes slowly. Her expression had changed now. Not fear, exactly, but something more fragile. Understanding, forming at the edges. And that understanding came with a new fear. If she remembered everything, she might also remember herself differently. Her lips parted slightly. "So, you're not here because I lost you." A pause. "You're here because I lost something else." Ethan didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He simply said, "You lost how it felt when I was still real to you." Isla suddenly remembered the last thing she ever said to him. And it wasn't goodbye. It was something she never forgave herself for forgetting. Isla's breath caught as Ethan's last words settled into her mind. You lost how it felt when I was still real to you. The sentence didn't fade like normal thoughts. It stayed, pressed into her awareness, like something trying to become permanent again. The apartment around them remained still, but the stillness no longer felt passive. It felt like it was holding space for something she hadn't fully faced yet. Isla slowly looked down at her hands, as if expecting them to feel different. I don't understand, she whispered again, but her voice lacked resistance now. It sounded more like she was trying to follow a thread she had just found. Ethan didn't move closer this time. He simply stood where he was, watching her carefully, as if every part of this moment depended on her remembering at her own pace. And Isla suddenly realized something unsettling. He wasn't pulling her toward the truth. She was already walking toward it without noticing. Her chest tightened slightly as another fragment surfaced. Not the event itself, but what came before it. A conversation, a tone, a feeling that something had been left unresolved for too long. Her lips parted slightly. We were arguing, she whispered. A pause. That was new. The memory responded. Ethan didn't interrupt. He only nodded once. Isla's breathing became uneven again as more of it surfaced. Not the full scene, but enough pieces to change the shape of what she thought she knew. And the terrifying part wasn't what she remembered. It was how calm it felt now that she was starting to accept it. Her voice lowered. I left the room first. The words came out slowly, uncertain, like she was testing them. Ethan's expression didn't change. That's what you told yourself, he said quietly. Isla frowned slightly. Told myself? A longer silence followed. The apartment felt closer now, almost like the walls had subtly shifted inward without moving. Ethan's gaze remained steady. You needed a version that made sense, he added softly. Isla shook her head slightly. No, I wouldn't just... Her voice trailed off, because something was forming again, clearer this time. A memory not just of movement, but of emotion, tension, fear. A moment where everything had felt too fast, too loud, too irreversible. Her hand moved instinctively to her chest, and she realized something terrifying. She hadn't forgotten the event. She had forgotten how she felt inside it. Her breathing became shallow. I don't like this, she whispered. Ethan's voice softened slightly. Because it's closer now. Isla looked up at him sharply. Closer to what? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he let the silence stretch. And in that silence, the memory filled in another gap. A choice, a movement, not dramatic, not cinematic, just real. Her voice broke slightly. I didn't push you, she said quickly, almost defensively. But even as she said it, her tone faltered, because the memory wasn't accusing her. It was showing her something more complicated. And that complexity made her realize something she had avoided for a long time. Truth wasn't always about innocence or guilt. It was about understanding what actually happened without protecting yourself from it. Ethan stepped slightly closer now, just enough to close the emotional distance. You didn't mean it the way it happened, he said gently. Isla's eyes widened slightly. Then how did it happen? A pause, the longest one yet, not empty, heavy. Finally, Ethan spoke. You reacted. The words hit differently than she expected. Not as blame, not as comfort, but as explanation. Isla's breathing became uneven again as the memory sharpened further. Not fully, but enough to change the emotional shape of everything she thought she knew. Her voice dropped to a whisper. So, it wasn't planned. Ethan shook his head slightly. No. Another pause. And that's why you couldn't carry it clearly. Silence followed again. This time, it didn't feel like avoidance. It felt like arrival. Isla slowly exhaled, her shoulders lowering slightly, as something inside her began to settle. Not fully healed, not fully broken, just acknowledged. And that acknowledgement scared her more than confusion ever did. Her voice came softer now. So, I didn't lose you. A pause. I lost the moment after. Ethan didn't correct her. He only said, You lost what you became in it. Isla suddenly saw herself in the memory, clearly for the first time, and she wasn't standing still. She was moving before she realized she ever did. Isla's breathing slowed without her permission, as the memory sharpened further, no longer fragmented or distant, but approaching something she could no longer avoid seeing clearly. The apartment around her faded slightly in importance, as if reality itself was stepping back to let the memory take center stage. Ethan remained where he was, watching her carefully, but now his presence felt less like an intrusion and more like a reflection of something she was finally beginning to face. And Isla suddenly understood something chilling. He hadn't been revealing the truth to her. He had been waiting for her to stop hiding from it. Her fingers trembled slightly at her sides as the memory fully formed in her mind's eye. The argument, the tension, the sudden shift in tone that had made everything feel unstable. Not loud chaos, but emotional pressure building too quickly to contain. Her lips parted. I see it, she whispered. A pause. Not relief, not fear, recognition. The memory wasn't attacking her anymore. It was revealing her. Ethan's voice stayed calm. Don't stop looking now. Isla swallowed hard, her eyes unfocused as she fully entered the recollection. She saw herself, not clearly at first, but enough. Standing in the same space, same proximity, same emotional weight pressing down on both of them, and Ethan. Not falling, not dramatic, just a sudden loss of balance in a moment that had already been unstable. And Isla realized something terrifying. There was no single action that defined it. It was a sequence of seconds that no one fully controlled. Her breath hitched sharply. It wasn't one thing, she whispered. Ethan didn't respond, because he didn't need to. The memory continued unfolding on its own now. Her voice grew quieter. We were both overwhelmed. A pause. The truth felt heavier when spoken out loud. The apartment seemed quieter again, as if even the environment was respecting the moment, and Isla suddenly understood. This was why her mind had fragmented it, not to erase guilt, but to survive emotional overload. Her hands clenched slightly. I didn't push you, she said again, but this time it wasn't defensive. It was searching. Ethan finally spoke. I never said you did. That stopped her. Her eyes lifted slightly. Confusion returned, but softer now, more thoughtful. Then why does it feel like... She hesitated. Like I'm responsible. Ethan's gaze softened slightly. Because you were the last person there before everything changed. A long silence followed, not heavy like before, but clearer. Isla exhaled slowly, her shoulders lowering a fraction as something inside her shifted again, not into denial, not into acceptance, but into understanding the complexity of it. And that complexity was the first thing that made the truth feel less like punishment and more like memory. Her voice dropped slightly. So, I didn't cause it. A pause. But I didn't stop it either. Ethan didn't correct her. He only said quietly, "You were part of it." The words landed gently, but firmly. Isla closed her eyes for a moment, not to escape, but to let the memory settle without resisting it. When she opened them again, her expression had changed. Less confusion, more clarity. "I remember now," she whispered. "Not everything, but enough." The apartment felt still again, but not hollow, balanced. Ethan stepped back slightly, giving her space for the first time, and Isla suddenly realized something important. He wasn't here to haunt her memory. He was here because her memory had finally stopped fighting him. Her voice came out softer. "So, what happens now?" Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, "Now you stop rewriting it." Isla suddenly remembered the exact last second before everything changed, and this time, she didn't look away. She let it finish. Isla stood still, her breathing slow and uneven, as the memory finally stopped resisting her. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was chasing fragments or forcing clarity. Instead, everything she had been avoiding settled into place at once, not violently, but completely. The apartment around her no longer felt strange. It felt known, like it had always been waiting for her to see it this way. Ethan was still there, but something about his presence had changed, not in appearance, in weight. And Isla suddenly realized something unsettling. He didn't feel like an intruder in her life anymore. He felt like a part of a story she had finally agreed to read honestly. Her lips parted slightly. "I remember," she whispered again, but this time it wasn't uncertain. It was steady. A pause followed, not empty, finalizing. The last piece of the memory surfaced fully now, not dramatic, not distorted, just real. A moment of emotional overload. A loss of balance. A reaction neither of them fully controlled in that split second, where everything changed too quickly to correct. Isla's breath trembled. "I didn't see it clearly before," she said softly. Ethan nodded slightly. "That's because you were inside it," he replied. A long silence followed, the kind that didn't feel like confusion anymore, just completion waiting to be acknowledged. And Isla suddenly understood something deeper than guilt or innocence. Memory doesn't just store events, it protects identity. Her voice dropped slightly. "So, what I've been seeing wasn't a lie." A pause. "It was incomplete." Ethan didn't correct her. He simply said, "It was surviving." That word stayed in the air longer than expected. Isla slowly looked around the apartment again, not searching this time, observing, as if seeing it with new awareness. Everything felt aligned now, but not finished. Her chest rose and fell more evenly now, her fear replaced with something quieter, heavily reflective. "I thought I lost you," she said softly. Ethan looked at her. "You did," he replied gently. A pause. "Just not the way you thought." Silence followed, the kind that didn't need filling. And Isla suddenly realized the most important shift of all. He wasn't returning to her life. She was finally returning to the moment as it actually was. Her eyes softened slightly. "So, this isn't haunting me?" Ethan shook his head once. "No." Another pause. "This is you remembering, without protection." The air in the room felt lighter now, but not less emotional. Just honest. Stripped of distortion. Isla exhaled slowly. For the first time, her voice carried something stable. "Then I don't need to be afraid of it anymore." Ethan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he simply watched her. And then he smiled faintly. Not because everything was perfect, but because something inside her had finally stopped running. And that realization made Isla understand something irreversible. He had never been trying to come back to her life. He had been waiting for her mind to stop leaving it. A long silence followed. Peaceful, heavy, final. Then Ethan's voice came softly. Now you can choose what it means. Isla nodded slowly, not in agreement, but in understanding. And for the first time since that night, she didn't feel like she was missing anything, only remembering. The apartment light flickered once, and for a split second, Ethan wasn't the only one standing there.